Welcome to the Redeemer Podcast. I'm your host, Zach, and today we are exploring Redeemer's mission and purpose, along with learning about some exciting new microcredentials and certificate programs coming to Redeemer University. And joining me to explore these topics is Redeemer's Vice President of Academics, Dr. Peter Newman. If it is your first time here, make sure to like and subscribe, share with a friend, and check out some of our other episodes that explore various aspects of Redeemer Christian education and so much more. Thank you for making us part of your day. And with that, here we go. And we are pleased to welcome in Dr. Peter Newman to today's episode. Peter, welcome to the Redeemer Podcast. How are you?
I'm great. Great to be with you here today, Zach.
Oh, it's an exciting day. I know we're recording this the first week of school. Have you been on campus? What's the vibe like?
I have been on campus, and we had our convocation service yesterday. The vibe is excellent during the summer. It's staff and faculty are around, but it's sure great to have the students back on campus. And chapel was full yesterday, and so it's a great atmosphere.
Oh, it's always exciting starting off a new school year. Well, Peter, I'm so thankful you're here on the podcast today in our first episode of season 2 of the Redeemer Podcast. So we're really excited about that. And just a couple of questions, but let's start. So we know you're the vice president here at Redeemer. When did you first hear about Redeemer University, and how did you get to be the vice president?
So it's vice president academic.
Yes,
So there's
sorry.
other vice presidents as well, but
Yes.
yeah. So I'm overseeing the academic programs and faculty. But yeah, great question. How did I find myself in this position? My background is in a long time ago, pastoring, and then in academics for the last 22 years before
Wow.
I came to Redeemer. So I was a faculty member and in academic administration at a Pentecostal Bible College. And so about, I guess a year and a half ago, February 2023, I got invitation to be part of a search for the vice president academic at Redeemer. I think it was a more general invitation, just inviting different folks to see if they would like to apply, and I did, and it was putting in my application was different because I'd been in one denominational setting, and I knew Redeemer was interdenominational. So I knew Redeemer existed. It was a great Christian university. I actually had worked very closely with some staff at the college where I was, who were graduates of Redeemer and spoke very highly of their experience. But that's about the extent to which I was familiar with Redeemer. And so as part of the application process and getting prepared for, let's say, an initial interview, I began reading documents associated with Redeemer. For example, The Cross and Our Calling is a document that Redeemer produced in the early 2000s. It really outlines why Redeemer exists and what they're trying to do. And as I'm reading this through, and my background academically is in theology, so I've been teaching theology courses and about Christian worldview and all that for decades. And as I'm reading this through, even though I don't come from Redeemer's Reformed tradition that feeds into who Redeemer is, I realized I've been teaching. I not only agree with this, I've been teaching this type of thing for decades, and began to really, get excited about the broader opportunities that are involved in being a university to minister to students' lives, to help them become who they are to be for Jesus. And so then, so I was becoming more familiar with who Redeemer is through those documents. But then as I got into interviews and meeting the people who are part of Redeemer, very warm experience, very welcoming, inviting, just in those initial conversations. And it was a little bit of an odd feeling for me because I'd worked closely with people for over 2 decades who were friends and colleagues, and hadn't really planned on moving elsewhere. And yet, the more that I talked to the people at Redeemer, I thought, wow, these are great people. They're given to a mission that I really could find myself aligning with.
Yeah.
And so it was just a yeah, it was a very interesting experience of being sort of feeling like I think I could do this. And then when I was invited um, uh, to an invitation to take this position, it felt very right with me, and my wife talked about it frequently, to move in this direction. And I haven't regretted it for a moment. So it was a big move for me in the sense of just changing trajectories and working with new people. And it's been an excellent experience. I'm just, yeah, I'm having a great time, and wonderful people to work with. They're people who are very feel called to their mission of Redeemer, um, love Jesus, and are working together closely and collegially. So it's been an excellent experience.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing a bit of your journey. I'm sure there's a lot more hills and valleys that come, making that kind of transition. But it's been great to have you, here in a leadership position at Redeemer, and we're excited to see what God does through you. And well, could you maybe talk about? I know you've only been here a year, but I know a lot of people know you and speak highly of you, on campus. But could you maybe talk a little bit about what's something you've learned this first year at Redeemer, or something that maybe surprised you, when you actually started working at Redeemer?
I think the number of acronyms that I had to learn, and that's pretty common for universities.
Yeah,
But I came from a much smaller educational institution, and I guess we had acronyms too. But there's in order to run a university, it's all the background administrative sort of groundwork that has to happen, and just for a faculty member to walk into a classroom and teach a course. And I knew that from my previous experience, but coming to a university of Redeemer's size, and the broad, much wider scope of disciplines and programs, it just requires all sorts of professional, careful work. So there's academic um, program committees and things that take care of quality assurance and making sure everything goes through the right filters, so to speak, and that the right people are involved so that students get the best programs they can get. So yeah, walking into that, trying to learn that language, I was surprised at how I might have been expecting a little bit more culture shock, in the sense of working within a different Christian tradition historically, right? Redeemers
yeah,
in the Reformed Christian tradition, even though it's an interdenominational university. And my graduate work had been in interdenominational settings. So I was quite familiar with that, with working with folks from different traditions, and I actually enjoy that quite a bit. Um, but realizing over and above the differences that might be, we see with students coming from different traditions, faculty, staff from different traditions, but yet um, I was surprised that there wasn't more difference, in the sense of there seemed to be very, very core mission focus of, well, we're here for Jesus and we're doing this for his kingdom. And yeah, there's some differences in our church backgrounds. And some of those are, significant. I don't mean to downplay what those are, or that they're not meaningful. They are. But that the folks here just were able to say, but we're here together as Christians, knowing we're going to have to live with differences to just get on with what we feel called to do. And so there was not as much culture shock in that sense, like, and realizing, oh, we've been listening to the same music sometimes, and we've been, et cetera, et cetera. And so that I didn't know what to expect, to be honest. And just so that was like, oh, and I feel actually pretty much at home, and I'm learning lots about um, other backgrounds and that type of thing. So that's been very enjoyable. Um, I guess one more thing that has been a learning curve for me, and I mentioned coming from a smaller institution that's really focused, like a Bible college focus is, there's different streams that students can take, but
absolutely, yeah,
it's about training for usually for Christian ministry, pastoral
yeah,
ministry, and some of the parachurch ministries. University is much, much wider than that. And
yeah,
so now I'm interacting with deans, associate deans, faculty, who are experts in disciplines that I know very little or even nothing about. And I was saying to faculty about a week ago or so, I'm realizing there's disciplines and sub-disciplines that I've just never heard of, and you're really, everything about it, and then you realize like this much, and
Yeah.
I think I know my name, but I'll check with academic standards whether I do or not. And so you just realize you're working with people gifted in so many different areas, and the students are also interested in so many different areas. So just trying to learn as much as I can and to appreciate the different callings that God has put on people's lives in this multifaceted world that he's created. And so really celebrating those faculty, celebrating the students, and really learning, okay, what does it mean to be in the arts and painting and this type of thing? So or whatever it is, or mathematics and all these different areas. And so that's been fun and stretching at the same time.
And you did a great job articulating that. That is for sure one of the best parts about Redeemer is getting exposed to all of those disciplines of studies and meeting students and faculty that have expert knowledge. And I love hearing intelligent people speak about what they're intelligent in their field of study, and you get a lot of that at Redeemer for sure. Um, Kind of you've touched on this a lot, but maybe could you just summarize a little bit? You're clearly very passionate about Christian education.
Yeah.
Where does that passion come from?
I guess I, maybe let's just say maybe something the Lord put on my heart. I mean, we all have different giftings, calling. I don't know. I just sort of have developed an affinity for this in pastoral ministry, and then serving in contexts where we're trying to train students to be passionate about this. And I believe, as Redeemer would say and talk about, this is what we do here is part of a student's discipleship. So we're not the church. There's different types of, there's just different elements of discipleship that have to happen. But it's not like we stop being a Christian the moment we leave our worship service on a Sunday, and then we're doing chemistry work, or whatever the case is. Rather, this whole world belongs to God,
Mhm.
and all the things in it, the multifaceted things in it, they're all part of the wonderful creation He has made. So, what does it mean to think Christianly and operate Christianly in that context? Because that's going to be part of my discipleship. If we believe that this world belongs to God and that God has put different desires and giftings into our lives that lead us into different types of tracks. And this is one thing I love encouraging students with. I get to teach one course on Christian worldview in the winter with some other professors, and we try to celebrate the different, as part of that course, at some point, we're going to celebrate as many of the different disciplines represented at Redeemer as possible, so that students really know, like, all of these areas that we feel that we have gifts and talents and that we feel called to. God has put those in your heart for a reason, and you fit into God's world. And we don't always have that perspective. Sometimes we wonder where we fit, and realizing, oh, well, I might have different giftings than others, but this is part of God's creation. So all that to say is, this is part of discipleship. And then the end result of that is that we want to train these students for excellence, so that they are top notch in their field, or maybe they're going to go on to further academics, or maybe they're going to different professional fields, whatever it is, but that they're going to be well grounded and well situated to be a witness and a light as they go out into the world. And so they'll do that through a Christian perspective. And so it's part of our general call as Christians to be witnesses for Jesus. So they're going to do that in their particular fields and disciplines, or whatever it might be, but we're setting them up for that. So for me, that excites me about Christian education. Like, we're gonna be doing our lives from some perspective, from some grounding, from some worldview. Uh, it's not possible. That's one thing we would teach at Redeemer in our worldview course. It's not possible to not have a worldview. So whether you're at a secular university or a Christian university, you're going to be doing your studies through some perspective. We get to be explicit about our perspective at Redeemer and set up students well to not only succeed well in life, but also to represent Jesus very well in life. And that really excites me.
Oh, Peter, for any of our prospective student listeners or viewers out there, take note of what Peter is saying there. That is definitely what we're all about in terms of Redeemer, and which is actually a really good segue to. I'm going to just bring up this web page here, and again, link for those watching on YouTube. Link to this website will be in the description below. Feel free to check it out. We're not going to go through the whole website, but this is Redeemer's mission and vision webpage here. And so the mission, and then in brackets purpose, is preparing students to reflect the love of Jesus Christ in every career and calling. And again, you kind of touched on this, but could you maybe expand upon this specific mission and purpose statement?
Yeah. I love this statement because it's nice and concise, and I've mostly memorized.
Yeah.
um, so we're Redeemer is an educational institution. So and yet we can see I can see in this statement that we realize formation is is multifaceted. So we use the word prepare. We're preparing students. We know this is not the end of their life, right? It's not they may stay in academics, and
Yeah.
we hope some of them do, but there's all sorts of other things that God has for people to do as well. So this is a preparing season in their life, but very, very crucial when it comes to formation and how they are going to think out things later in their life. So they're not going to go away with all the answers. We're still, that's an ongoing process in life, but we're preparing them. And it's not simply about, we're preparing them in different ways. And that relates to the different disciplines we have in our institution, whether a student studying kinesiology or business or history or chemistry, whatever it is, they're going to be different ways of learning. So, um, part of those things, there's going to be lectures, but there's also going to be experiential learning. And so the preparing piece means we're really thinking about that deeply as faculty. What does it mean to prepare, looking to that end goal? And it's going to be done in different ways. We're not just as philosopher James K.A. Smith says, we're not just brains on a stick.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, there's an experiential dimension to who we are, and that applies to learning. And so we're preparing students for those different ways of life. With academic rigor, yes, but recognizing that's going to happen in different ways. So, and then to do what? Well, we're preparing them to reflect the love of Jesus in this world, and there's other words that we could add there, reflect the grace of Jesus and the truth of Jesus and all these types of things. But that word love, the Bible talks about God being love. We see that reflected in what Jesus is, and we're hoping that we realize that doesn't say everything about who Jesus is, but we realize it reflects this sort of John 3:16 mission to the world of God loving the world and inviting people to believe in his Son, so that they can continue to reflect and Jesus and what it means to be an image of God in this world. So we're doing what the what is that we want these students, wherever they find themselves, to be able to reflect what it means to be a Jesus follower in that career and calling that they're in. And so that comes full circle to this career and calling, and just accents this idea that it's not for one particular field. It's not just the arts, it's not just the humanities, it's just not social science or the natural science and mathematics, but it's every field of life that we are called to matters to God. Look, I may not understand what it means to be a really good social scientist. I can appreciate it. And I do know this, that God thinks it's very important and has gifted people for that. Likewise with music, likewise with the other fine arts, painting, likewise with mathematics. And as a Christian, one thing I think we like to do with students, not only celebrate their own giftings, but help other students realize those giftings are important to God, even if those are not my gifts, right? So it's realizing, oh, there's a need for these other giftings, and appreciate that. And so I think that's what we're trying to encapsulate in that little sentence. At least
Yeah.
that's my commentary on it. But that's what I go away from when I look at that statement.
Well said, and I totally agree with you. And what I appreciate about Redeemer's mission statement in that regards is it really does do a good job of letting students know even before they start their time at Redeemer that your time at Redeemer is not just about getting a degree. It's not just about coming, going to class, though that happens, and that's part of the university experience, but it's about your life as a whole, not just these 4 years, set period of time. And that the hope is that we are setting students up for success. Well, speaking of setting students up for success, we have some exciting news, and I know the admissions department, they would not let me get away if I didn't ask you about this. We have some exciting new programs coming to Redeemer. Redeemer's always had Bachelor of Arts programs. We've added Bachelor of Sciences over the years, the Bachelor of Communications last year, kinesiology last year. There's lots of exciting things happening. I know there's master's programs kind of in the works, but this year we have a launch of some really interesting programs, certificate and micro credential programs. Could you maybe talk about the development of these programs and the significance of opportunity that they have, potential students for those programs?
Sure. Yeah. Let me back up for just a second here,
Yeah,
and give a context to the why, what's this emphasis on new programs? And
yeah,
part of it is that before I came here in 2020, Redeemer was applied for and went through all the processes to get university status. And that opened up opportunities for Redeemer to offer a lot more degrees, not only different undergraduate degrees and diplomas, but also some graduate level programs as well. And so uh, the last number of years, there's been a focus and strategic focus on beginning to expand Redeemer's offering. So we have a real opportunity to take what we believe that God has called Redeemer to do, which is help train students for every career and calling, share the love of Jesus, reflect the love of Jesus, and but realize we have opportunity to broaden our scope of reach and to impact folks that we who cannot, or it's not, maybe a life stage where coming to a campus for 4 years is not realistic, or maybe they already have um, a degree or whatever the case is, but they're looking for training in other areas of life. In other words, we realize there's ways to offer more types of programs, but also make ourselves more accessible to students in different ways. So that's the backdrop there.
right.
And so
Thank you.
you're correct, Zach, that we're working right now on several graduate degrees that we're hoping the next couple of years to be launching, and we're very excited about that. You've asked about what's happening right now. And so this fall, we've just launched a new certificate in not-for-profit management. And so it's a certificate that an individual can take. They can either take the 4-course certificate or the advanced certificate of 6. These are undergrad level courses, equivalent of what somebody would take on campus, but they are delivered online and online, not through what we're doing right now, like a Zoom meeting. This isn't Zoom, but anyway, like it's not a virtual type of meeting like this, but rather it's asynchronous, meaning that
Okay.
a student, and here's these academic words, right? Get used to saying them in our context, but it simply means this: that a course runs paced during a semester, and there is a faculty member facilitating the course. But week to week, as students do assignments, and some of that might be group discussion, interaction, and posting things and those types of things. It'll involve some reading. It'll involve watching some media or lectures and that type of thing. But the student can do that during the week at whatever time of day or night is convenient for them, and that is very beneficial for those who have family, they have career, they can't be at on a screen at a certain time, certain place during the day, and that works really, really well for them. And so we wanted to begin making ourselves accessible in that type of way to students. And so we started with this not-for-profit management certificate. There are folks who find themselves in not-for-profit organizations who have never necessarily formally taken any courses specifically about that, or maybe they've taken some training, and that's why we're trying to make actually the certificate quite flexible depending on people's backgrounds. Maybe they've already had some training in accounting, so they don't need that course. And so there's ways. I won't get into it because I'll say something wrong, and you know, talk to the registrar.
Yeah, it's
They'll guide
check,
you
check,
through that
check
perfectly.
it.
But
Yeah.
yeah, point is that we're trying to recognize that folks find themselves sometimes in situations where they're called upon to draw on skills that they haven't formally trained for, and they love what they're doing. They love being in a not-for-profit, and that could be, again, even some even pastors sometimes find themselves in this place where, wait, I went to seminary, I trained for this, I didn't fully train for this. How can I get help in it? And so that's some of the area that we're trying to address. So we're excited about this. That the first course in this program launched this week on Tuesday, and so there are students in that course, and we're hoping to. All the courses are not developed yet, so the program is launched. We're still in the development of other courses, but we hope
Right.
to develop those as quickly as possible. The other um, area that we are, and so we're. So sorry, I'll back up a second here. We're going to continue to develop these types of certificates, graduate programs. The other opportunity that we have is to develop um, non-academic courses as well. And an easy way to launch those is in what's called micro credentials. Now, all micro credential means is it's not a full course. It could be the equivalent of 1 week in a regular course. It could be, it's, in other words, it's a certain amount of hours, and we can do that with academic courses and sort of say, hey, you can take part of a course and you can stack it together, and soon you'll have a full course. But something else that Redeemer wanted to do is offer some non-academic micro credentials, and specifically ones that would serve our constituency well. And we've had tremendous support from the wider Christian community over the years. And we believe what we do at Redeemer is really good stuff here. And we have great professors, and we want to, in some ways, give back to that broader church community that has been supporting us. And one area of need that we became aware of is that Christian church officers or church laity who find themselves being called upon to be a board member or be an elder in a church are sometimes good Christian people, mature in their faith, and they're likewise being asked to do tasks that they might be familiar with or maybe not. Suddenly you're called to chair a meeting or do something to do with finances or go pray for somebody in the hospital or et cetera, deal with HR issues. Um, Nobody, I don't necessarily have any training to do that, but now I'm being called and want to be responsible with that. So we're producing several micro credential courses. So two of them are well into development now, and they will be launched, I believe, mid-October. So October is the
Wow.
launch date for both of those. And so we have a church. We're calling it church leadership micro credentials, but the courses that we have focused in on, there's one on sort of this HR focus on understanding some of the legalities, what makes for a um, good staff management, those types of things. So uh, that's a huge issue in churches today. How do we make sure we're treating people well and not doing things we shouldn't do and doing the things we ought to do and all those types of things as lay leaders in a church? How do we make sure that's working right? We have another course that's launching in October as well on sort of being a leader and vision. What does biblical leadership mean? And how do we administrate some of that when it comes to something very high end vision and leadership, and how do I administrate that by leading a meeting? And so the nuts and bolts of that. And then a third course we're going to be developing is on pastoral care. I don't think we've quite finalized a title for that course, but the idea is, again, if I'm in a hospital visiting somebody, what should I say? What do I not say? How do I pray for somebody? What are some of the practicalities around that? And so we have really good uh, people from within Redeemer, but also we're drawing on trusted people and professionals outside of Redeemer, but who are connected to Redeemer in different ways who understand these areas well. And so these micro credentials usually last about 6 to 8 hours. Some of it's video, some of it's some homework, some of it's some reading, some of it's material that our experts are producing, and you get a badge of sorts when you're done that you can put on your resume. Yes, I have been through this course. And so we're hoping our feedback as we've done discussions with groups of pastors and leadership of different denominations in the process of developing this has been that these are some things that are really needed. And we hope that it's a benefit to the broader church community.
That's all. So, so just to kind of focus this a little bit, would you say, if I'm a pastor at a church, I would maybe be considering for these programs, or maybe I'm on a church board somewhere, or a not for profit organization of some kind. I just so who specifically are these programs kind of geared towards?
So the academic one, the not-for-profit management certificate, is for someone who's looking for a more in-depth type training in their area, and so that's why it's the equivalent of an undergrad course on these particular. Introduction to not-for-profit management. There's emphases in another course on accounting, another course on strategic planning, and all sorts of different things like that. So a student could just say, well, I just want to take one course. I need that one thing. But they'll get a full course credit for that. If they want the full certificate, I want 4 courses. Not every student's going to need 6. So that's why we made a 4-course certificate, and then we call it an advanced certificate for the 6 if you
Right.
want to take all of those. But it's really, there's going to be, you're spending roughly 6+ hours a week in a course like that, digging down. Like it's a more in-depth exposure to the theory and practice of being involved in not-for-profit settings. So that's who that would involve. So
Right.
again, I would encourage people to just take a look at the types of courses that are going to be offered, and if you want to get more in depth on something like that, to go for that. And it's some work. You give yourself for a season of life, the next 12, 13 weeks of my life, I'm going to be learning lots about this, but we're expecting the benefits of those courses to apply pretty quickly, that this is going to help people where they are embedded in their not-for-profit or whatever, business, whatever the case is, that it's going to help them quickly along the way and give them more confidence in what they're doing. When it comes to micro credentials, and again, we will be likely in the future developing academic micro credentials that will count for a part of a course, et cetera, all the credit stuff that the registrar can talk to you more about. But the non-academic ones are intended very much for those who are volunteering in a church, but in a position of really significant responsibility. Right, you're accountable for things that you think, but am I sure I know how to do this? And we want to, again, elevate people's confidence in those things so they feel more equipped. They're able to serve their congregations well in what they're able to do. And so that's the current micro credentials we're offering. They're not academic. That doesn't mean you won't learn something. We're hoping these are going to be value added to you and for you. But that's who might be interested in those. And the commitment level is much less. Like the entire course, again, is about 6 to 8 hours, that type of thing. And so that's who that is for. It's far more specific and aimed at that.
Well, this is really exciting because these are definitely new, educational, academic, avenues that Redeemer are exploring, and great opportunities. Absolutely. Peter, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on and providing so much context and information in regards to Christian education as a whole, but also these new programs coming to Redeemer. And I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. We'll have to have you on again sometime.
Oh, this has been great. Thanks so much, Zach. Appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. And if you are out there and you want information about anything we've talked about today on this program, check out the links in the description below and head to redeemer.ca. We'd be happy to chat with you. And we will see you in the next episode. God bless everyone. And thanks for watching the Redeemer Podcast.